Kids are nasty. Okay, they're going to get sick. They're going to lick things. They're going to lick you. You cannot control everything your child does to reduce an illness coming into their bodies.
When my son comes home from daycare every day, I'm like, you got to wash your hands. You got to wash your hands. You got to wash your hands. Does it matter if they wash their hands?
You're going to get sick if you touch something and then fingers go in the mouth, fingers go up the nose, or you rub your eyes.
What are some basic things that parents could keep in mind?
When your kid is sick, stay hopeful and not naive.
How are you? Hit me with your topic. I mean, I feel like you're coming in today. You're just like, let's go. What have you got to say? Share.
Last week, my kids came home from school. This is a big story of they're coming home you know what happened, Mom? XYZ threw up all of the lunchroom floor. Blah. And I was first off, poor kid. Sorry that happened. Second off, I was already anticipating. It's Tuesday now. How many days do I have before I have to prep for throwing up in our house? The mental spiral that you get into.
The anxiety.
You know that's the anxiety when someone is sick in their neighborhood and they're in classes together. They're and it was one of their best friends. Also, they had been on the bus with them, sitting next to that kid.
Ugh. Did your kids get sick?
Actually, they didn't.
There you go. Channeling the positivity. I feel like that's all I think about. When I leave the daycare and I come home every day, I walk into the house as if I've touched actual dog poop or something. And then I turn the sink on with my elbow and I'm I want to just wash my hands in as hot water as possible. So I'm shit, I touched the handle of the daycare. What do I have on me? When my kids come home too, it's hazmat time. I mean, well, it's really just a hand washing thing, but I do get worried. I think about all of the things and how our kids are going to get sick. And that means we're going to get sick. But actually, this episode is so great because we have Dr. Mona Amin here. And this is an awesome conversation. Spoiler, we're doing this intro after we recorded. But I think it's important because one of the biggest lessons she told us is to stay really positive and optimistic when your kid gets sick or when you find out your kid's best friend is sick or if they vomited on the floor at school. And it actually changes the way I'm now thinking about it. And there's a very important reason why, and you have to listen to find out. It's awesome. So let me tell you about Dr. Mona. She is a board-certified pediatrician. She's a mom of 2, and she's the founder of PedsDocTalk, which is now a global platform that offers evidence-based guidance and really relatable insights on child health and development and just parenting. And she's amazing. I got to ask her all of the things I want to ask my pediatrician, but there's never time for in the 15-minute appointment. Yeah, I'm I just want to take my pediatrician to lunch and be okay, let me unpack a bunch of stuff. I have so many questions.
Here's my list.
And yeah, we got to do that with Dr. Mona today. So buckle up because this one is really good. A lot of practical insight.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
Now, we're so excited to have you on. I have to say too that I've been following you for ages. And just find your content so valuable and so refreshing and also just really well delivered. It's just been wonderful. And we were so excited when we thought we need to have a pediatrician. I was it's got to be Dr. Mona.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. I'm so happy to join you guys. So I hope I can deliver that same feel on the show.
Oh, of course you can. Can you just tell us, this is really out of my own curiosity, but are you still practicing or are you doing content full time?
Yes, I still practice, but very, very reduced. I work only 1 day a week in the clinic.
As a pediatrician, I need to know, are you always getting sick from the kids?
Interestingly, I did when I first moved down here. So when I first moved down here from New York, and there's something called regional immunity. So you get kind of used to the strains of viruses that are in the areas you are. So when I moved down here, it was also a very stressful job experience. Stress doesn't help the immune system. So I was getting sick every 2 weeks, like a toddler in preschool. And then now, knock on wood, maybe 2 or 3 times a year at the most. And it's usually from one of my children being sick, not so much from patients. And then thanks to the pandemic, I got used to wearing masks and gloves. And I just do that now in every sick visit just to protect myself. And I think it has really been a game changer for me not getting sick from patients.
That makes a ton of sense. When I go to the pediatrician with my kids, I also feel like I need a hazmat suit because I know my own kids are sick, but I'm what does everyone else have? And they're all running around, touching everything. And I mean, it's obviously unavoidable, but it's just one of those moments as a parent where you're oh God, shit, we're all going to get screwed.
I went to the grocery store yesterday with my son and he was literally touching everything, the casings of everything, things he didn't need. And I'm I tell him before we walk into places, I'm you don't need to touch everything, touching. And I'm oh my God. And I had to do a big haul of stuff. It wasn't a short, in and out. And I was okay, you just got to let it go. I'm like, it's fine. I can only do what I can do. So yeah.
So speaking of touching stuff, like how much does that matter? Because when my son comes home from daycare every day, I'm like, you got to wash your hands. You got to wash your hands. You got to wash your hands. And I don't know, like, is that real? Like, does it matter if they wash their hands? Are they getting germs at the store? Should we be vigilant about that?
So yeah, so germs are going to spread mostly from touching things and bringing it to your mucous membranes. So you're not going to get sick if something stays on your hand, but it doesn't come into your eyes, through your nose, or through your mouth. But you're going to get sick if you touch something and then fingers go in the mouth, fingers go up the nose, or you rub your eyes. So we call them the mucous membranes, right? That is how illnesses get into the system. So hand washing is how we prevent that from happening, right? So you come home, wash your hands, and also you think about it, we want them to wash their hands before they eat. Similar concept, because when they're eating, hands are going to the mouth. Another knock on wood situation is my son, he's almost 6 at the time of this recording, and he also gets sick maybe 2 fevers a year, runny nose randomly, occasionally, but it's all, I do believe a lot of it is because we spend a lot of times outdoors. And I believe, outdoors, obviously germs are not going to spread as much, but also the fact that we have been very, very particular about hand washing being a non-negotiable, meaning when he comes from outside to inside, the first thing he does is, hey, wash your hands. And when you're done, you can have a snack. Like when you wash your hands, then we'll do this, right? So it's part of the routine. And then obviously, even also including whenever we sit down to eat anything, we do that. And then after toileting. So like those 3 main times, right? Coming from the outside world, about to eat, and then obviously after eating because it's messy if it is. And then also just, after toileting. Like those are your times that you're going to reduce the spread of the germs. And I mean, you go back to the basics. To me, that is the fundamental way to reduce the risk of spread of germs. And then of course, you could possibly get sick if like you're standing next to somebody and they sneeze in your eyeball. But again, that's going back to germs. It's going back to germs like getting into the mucous membranes, right? So that hopefully won't happen too much. I know that happens a lot for moms and I've been there.
Yeah, they only sneeze in one direction and it's in your face. And I feel like
always in the face.
I don't know, it's with my husband, he'll be like holding my son and he's sick. And then I swear my son will like turn to sneeze on me, even if he's like on my husband's lap. I'm like, what is it?
It's even when I was working as a pediatrician, right? I mean, I've had so many moments, which is why I start wearing a mask in sick visits, is that I would have them, say, and it's that moment that they need to cough. And I've been coughed in my face, my eyeball. Now I wear glasses, so that I think protects me a little bit from the eyeballs. But oh yeah, I've had germy coughs right in my nose and my mouth.
Oh my God. It's honestly so gross. Like when my daughter was born, she was born in February in Canada. So like it was very cold, peak RSV, flu, like everything was going around the daycare where my son was. And whenever he came home, we would just carry him in like, for anyone not watching the video version of this podcast, it was like holding, the most disgusting thing you could think of. We like barely touched him, plopped him into the shower, undressed him. We had a relative visiting who's a doctor, but definitely not not a practicing physician, like more of a research physician. And he was like, that doesn't do anything. Like you don't need to change his clothes. You don't need to. And we're like, oh my gosh, we've been doing this for a month.
Yeah.
So like, is the clothing thing a thing? Like during flu season coming up, like should our kids be getting undressed when they come in? Or does that not?
I agree with your friend who is not a pediatrician. I actually agree with that. I think we can get very obsessive about the clothes. Could germs live on surfaces like clothing? Absolutely. But your risk is lower because when I go back to like touching things and putting things in our mouth, like it's not like, okay, you touch your child's shirt and then you're going to transfer that, right? You go back to the hand washing. Like it all goes back to the hand washing and then covering our mouth when we sneeze or cough with our elbow. I mean, it's the basic stuff. Now, if you have a newborn or an immunocompromised individual in the house, would that be good precaution? 100%, because you're going to probably reduce the risk even more. But we don't do that. We are grateful that we have like otherwise healthy individuals in our home. No one's immunocompromised. And that's a privilege that we have, but we don't strip down, change out. We don't do that. And we've never have. And I know in the pandemic, people got very cautious about that and wanted to. And again, if that makes you feel a little more secure, go for it. But if it's adding more stress to like have to get the kids home, get them changed, all that stuff, hassles, I would drop the hassle. And either you can opt to do an early bath time instead and just have it be that. And then you're all clean and change into pajamas before dinner, or you nix it, right? It's not worth the
Yeah.
stress to have to do it because it's not like a big lift of like, okay, well, this is going to be the reason everyone got sick in the house.
That is so funny. So I'm going to be like, hearing you all talk about like the hand washing, and like, I'm going to be like super honest. I am way less vigilant about like the hand washing and the everything. Like I will be, for example, like when we visit Melissa in a couple of weeks and my kids will be coming into her house and like there's a baby there, like definitely like the regional strains of illnesses will be coming from Europe to Canada, and like they will be crossing and they will be merging, and there will be definitely stuff going on. I grew up in Europe in such a different way where like the hand washing was not as important. Like I washed my hands after a bathroom visit, obviously. Like I sometimes wash my hands, like I wash my hands all the time, but it's a sensory thing for me because I hate the feeling of like sticky hands, like even the smallest thing. But for my kids, like I have to be way more on it to make sure that like they do wash their hands regularly. So like after a bathroom visit, that's a non-negotiable. Coming inside from the outdoors, I may not even have ever thought about it unless they were like actually extremely dirty.
Yeah, and also I would say if you're going to tier them after toileting, for sure, I think that we can all agree on that. And then I would say before eating.
I hope so.
Before eating. Like, because again, coming from the outside, I'm trying to think normally, the reason I say that is that when we come from the outside, it's usually snack or mealtime after that. Like we come from the outside. That's in our routine in our house where we go play before we eat. It's just what we've done. And so that's why probably I'm thinking, okay, wash the hands before eating, but you can nix that and just say, hey, you know what? Before you eat, let's do this, right? And that's I think a reasonable kind of middle ground of like, okay, this makes the most sense. But going back to like how germs enter through our fingers and into our nose and our mouth, and like getting underneath the fingernails, I cannot stress enough how dirty fingernails are. Like germs live on fingernails, and like the kids, even if they're not biting their fingernails, like in the nose and stuff, I mean, you can just like, I just think about it. Trim the fingernails whenever you can so that we can reduce that risk. Wash it when you are about to eat, before eating. And it's when you're done with this, it's going to be dinner time. And so that way it's part of the routine. But we can drop from the outside. I only do that because it's usually snack time.
That's fair. Like, I feel like it's all like so different from parent to parent, and like where you're like, I'm not saying like parents don't value hygiene and cleanliness in their house. I feel like you have to measure like the sensory things as well. Like if it's a constant battle for every single hand wash, I feel like we can kind of like ease up a little bit depending on your day. Like I grew up with like, my mom always said that kids need 3 things: cold, dirt, and pets. That was like her mantra of like basically like play outside as much as you can, interact with pets and animals, and don't overdress them, or like don't like make your house like too warm inside, like air out the house, like a very European thing. It's just like, I bet Melissa, like Nick does the same thing. Luften, like air out the house. It's a German thing.
Yes, my husband is German. It's a thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I feel like these are the 3 things that my mom always like told us as kids, like cold, dirt, pets. How true is it though? Because my mom can say anything as if it was like a fact, period. But like, how true is it?
Well, I like the dirt component, and I want to be honest. Like when we say go out in dirt, it's really actually great to go play and like enjoy the outdoors. And I want to add that there's this balance here, because I have some families, and I get asked this on a lot on my social about taking hand sanitizer with you, and after every touch, hand sanitizer. Absolutely not. Like my philosophy is that if we're going to go play outside, go play. And then when we get back inside or before we eat, right, is when we're going to wash or hand sanitize, right? Because that's when it's going to be direct contact to the mouth. So I see this, and parents are freaking out when they see me take my kids to like indoor play gyms. And they're like, how do you get over that? And I'm like, because I know that I'm taking the benefit over the risk, right? They like this place. It's activity for them for a few hours over the risk of, okay, they're going to get sick. And let's be honest, they're going to get sick. And to your point, Esther, like germ exposure to a healthy degree is normal, right? And when I say healthy degree, we don't want to actively seek out illness and get our kids sick purposely, right? We don't want to be like, oh, you know what? This person has chicken pox. Let's go hang out with them. What we are okay with is that understanding that they're in this world. They're going to maybe go outside and play, and that's part of it. And there is something called the germ hypothesis, which I strongly believe in, is that if you keep things too clean, avoid dirt, avoid the nature, avoid all of that, then it can actually increase the risk of allergies, eczema, atopic disease, which includes those things, asthma and allergies as well. And so there is a hypothesis that living a too clean lifestyle, and I call this the Lysol or Clorox cleaning. Like if you're wiping surfaces every single moment, your body's not just getting exposed to normal flora, like in the environment, and that is healthy for the immune system to get trained. So your mom's right on getting dirty. I agree with that. I would add that before you put something in your mouth, just wash those hands. Even if mom says no. And then the other thing is what you had mentioned about the cold, right? Opening windows, 100%. One thing I really miss about living on the West Coast of the United States is that in Florida, it's so humid that we can't open windows. And then if we do, mosquitoes are going to come in, and it's stagnant. But in California, oh my God, I loved airing out. And when you think about it, fresh air is ventilation, right? Fresh air can circulate stagnant, germy air. So if someone is sick in the home, if someone has some cough and whatever, opening the doors is going to redistribute that air so that it's not just everyone breathing the same germiness, which absolutely makes sense, right? And so you don't need a study to show you that. I mean, think about how we spread germs in an indoor crowded setting. Ventilation is great. So when I think about temples and churches, I know the temples I went to growing up were so crowded and stagnant, the air. I'm like, everyone just open a window. Churches, you think about, I always give that example when parents are like, hey, can I take my newborn places? I'm like, fresh air places, enjoy. But if you're going to a crowded indoor place where air is stagnant, that is a higher risk of germ spread. Because if 10 people are sick in that indoor place, because there's no ventilation, that's going to cause it to be more likely to spread to people. We need good ventilation. And so your mom is right on that one. And then what was the third thing?
Pets.
Oh, yes. And that goes back to the germ hypothesis. There's actually solid data showing that people that are raised with pets, from a young age, have a lower risk of atopy, which includes your asthma, allergies, eczema. And that has to do with, again, because pets bring in germs, right? Because they're walking outside and sniffing random things, because there's some degree of germs in the home. Because of them, the children touch those things, they get exposed. And again, it's immune system training that, okay, cool, I'll fight this. So to some degree, we want to train the immune system. So I don't want us to fear the germ. I don't want us to live in this bubble. But on the flip side, I don't want us to actively seek it out, right? I'm not going to be like, hey, you know what? So-and-so has hand, foot, and mouth. Let's go introduce them to my kid.
Let's go hang out. Oh,
and
God.
live this misery of hand, foot, and mouth. No.
Hand, foot, mouth sucks.
Yeah, that's exactly how I do it. So mom is right. Esther, you got it. I like this. I like the European mentality for a lot of things.
My mother-in-law is very keen on the neck warming. If you have a sore throat, she's like, put a scarf on. You've got to warm the neck. And I used to think it was kind of I don't know. I grew up in a household that was more you're sick, here are a bunch of pills to fix it and chicken soup. It was more medication based, I guess. And his family was raised more I guess naturally, or here, put the onions on your feet and do those things. And I feel whatever helps you get through it is helpful, right? I mean, if a popsicle is going to make my sick son feel like he's not sick for an hour, have a Pedialyte freezy,
Well, when you think about home remedies, so I'm Indian American, and the reason I'm bringing it up is that Indian culture is very deep on home remedies, right? I take care of a lot of Latino patients, and it's very common in their culture too, that home remedies are the mainstay of our culture, right? Whether it's for an umbilical hernia, I have some families with, when your belly button is outpouching, they'll put a coin to help flatten it out. That's a home remedy. Do I recommend it? No. So my advice is always if there's no harm to it, knock yourself out, right? Onions on the feet is not going to hurt anybody. There's no harm in putting an onion besides the smell and how much it would reek. But if you feel it's going to help you, and it's a virus anyways, it's not I can treat it. My only caveat to that is we have situations, which I'm sure y'all are very well of, that people will rely on the home remedy and not get actual care, right? Meaning the kid is super sick and the families are giving them turmeric injections or going to a naturopathic doctor or doing things that is extreme and not getting the modern medicine. And I'm right smack in the middle. I love natural remedies. I preach to them. I love them. I use them myself. I'm very low meds for my own family and myself. And I also am low to prescribing, but I also know when we need to rely on modern medication. And that includes anything that I can prescribe or over the counter. And I think that balance has been lost a lot of the times, especially now on social. It's very like, you got to do this or you got to do this. But think about, what can I do naturally first that's not invasive? And then what do I need to do that's more prescription or over the counter? And if that's not helping, do I need to get an elevated level of care? And I think that is perfectly valid. And I want more clinicians to think that way. And I want more families to remember that we should not be only relying on home remedies. That sometimes I've been there. I've seen those kids who relied on home remedies and get super, super sick because parents delayed care. And we don't want that situation, but we can live in that happy medium.
Yeah, I feel like one of the biggest things I worry about as a parent is that I'm going to miss how serious something is.
Yeah.
And I always want to be like kind of cool about it. I'm like, oh yeah, like they're sick, but they're fine. Not cool like to impress my mom friends, but just cool as in like, I don't want to stress over every little thing because kids get sick all the time. That's just reality. But I also think that there have been little moments where I'm like, oh, that could be something. And everyone talks about the mom gut. And I don't honestly, like I do have it sometimes, but it's been very wrong. Where I've like rushed to the hospital and they're like, nothing's happening here, go home. And then I've also had it where I'm like, everything's fine. Like my daughter, she was 5 weeks old and I was like, she's fine. And my mom happened to be over that day and she's like, her hand is a bit swollen. And I'm like, I don't know. She probably just like, whatever. She scratched it. I don't know. She's fine. And then my mom was like, you really should call your midwife, And so I did. And she's like, I don't like the look of that. Like, you should go to the hospital. I'm like, what? It turns out she had cellulitis. And I was like, holy shit. Like, had I not taken her to the doctor, like she could have eventually been gravely ill. And I was like, she's fine. It's a paper cut or whatever. And then there have been moments where I'm like, the kids are about to die. Life is over as I know it. And I rush over and the doctor's like, well, she just hasn't slept well in a couple, or whatever. And I'm like, how do you know? So are there things that we can really look for? I mean, I guess every case is so unique, but like, is there something that you can share with people that would help assess, like, when do I need to worry and how to know if your gut is right? I mean, I guess the assumption is like, if you feel it in your gut, you might as well go be on the safe side and go get checked. But like, are there telltale things? Like I've heard people say, treat the child or treat the behavior, not the thermometer, for example. But like, can you share some insight about like, how do we navigate those tough late night, like holy shit moments where we're not sure what to do?
Yeah. And I love the story you shared because I think it brings up 2 points. That one, the gut situation that I believe that every mother has. I truly believe it. And I think it can get clouded and lost, one, when we are in postpartum, because there's anxiety, there's emotion. So when emotions are high, rationality goes out the window. And I've been there too. Postpartum, I lost my intuition because I had anxiety, like really bad anxiety. And so tapping into that intuition is really useful. Now, the other part of that is you relied on someone else's advice and you relied on your village and how important that is. I mean, we can't do this alone. So I want to bring that up, that even if we don't have the intuition, listening to the grandma, listening to your partner, going to the doctor. I rather have situations where it's nothing at my office than it's everything, right? And so you brought up 2 examples of like it being something serious and you knew, and then you also brought an example of you're like, well, it's nothing. And then it was like the opposite. And when you start to do this more, you start to tap into that intuition. And so I wanted to speak about that. Now, when you look at illness in general, of course, there's so many different categories of things that we could go over, but always look at the child, right? And so what I mean by that is your child uncomfortable or inconsolable? And so your child's baseline demeanor. Some babies or some kids are kind of more crying. They may be more of a complainer or whiner, if we're going to use that term. You got to use your kid's baseline. So now if they're irritable, inconsolable beyond baseline, and they're uncomfortable, and you give ibuprofen, paracetamol, acetaminophen, and they're still uncomfortable, irritable, you're now going to want to get your little antennas up and be like, hey, I need to go get this child checked out. So irritability, inconsolability, despite comfort measures, a fever-reducing medicine, or even just pain-reducing medicine, like I mentioned. So that's your big category there. Anything that spreads that is unusual. So using the example of your daughter and that rash on her hand. So maybe you notice something. Okay, one day I'm not going to have you run. But if it's with inconsolability, go get it checked out, right? Or if it starts to spread. So anything on your anything on your child's
That's what was
body
happening.
that's
Yeah.
spreading, right? You're going to want to get evaluated, even if it's something that, oh, it's a bug bite. But a spreading rash is concerning for me, because a bug bite, like let's say you have a bug bite or a cut, that's going to stay local. But if you start to have an infection, which is what we're concerned about, you're going to start to see streaking or tracking. And that's what we're going to want to watch. And sometimes your clinician may just mark it like with a, skin safe marker, and like have you take photos of it so that we can monitor day by day. And then when we go back to like those big picture things, dehydration. So if your child's not drinking at baseline, but also not urinating, making wet diapers, that's another big thing. Any difficulty breathing, like where they're, having their nose retract in and out, their bone here, which is above the rib cage, the sternal notch. If you guys can't see me, it's the bone that's right underneath your neck that meets the rib cage. And then your ribs are tugging in and out. If you're seeing that, you're going to get evaluated. And then it's that you go back to your child and their baseline activity. And I when I say baseline activity, I remember this parent that came in one day, and it was about 3-year-old, and they just kept saying to us, she's not acting herself. And she just seemed like a typical 3-year-old, but they kept coming. Like every day for 4 days, they kept coming, and they're like, something's off. And many of us in the office saw her, like 3 different clinicians saw her. And we were like, it just seems like a virus. Like we didn't know her baseline because she was new to our office, right? And then that 4th day, she looked super sick. And we were like, this doesn't seem right. And they were like, this is not my daughter. She is not responding like the way she normally talks. She's slurring her words. And she ended up having something called encephalitis, which is when there's inflammation in the brain. And so I say that because, one, the clinician has to also listen to the family and say, is this your normal child? And even if it's not, like, even if it's like that, they're just like maybe overreacting in our mind, or they themselves are truly, the least we can do is be like, hey, I need you to come back tomorrow, and you need to watch X, Y, and Z, or let's do some basic blood work, or let's do X, let's do this because I'm concerned. It's one of the biggest teaching moments I've ever had as a pediatrician, that patient, because 3 different people in my office looked at that child, and it wasn't bad, but then it got bad. And we were like, this kid is not okay. And like we all recognized it. And it was another 4th clinician on that 4th day who said, look, this kid is really sick. And how did she look yesterday? And we all were like, she didn't look like that. And like it was a good moment of understanding something that I want every parent to know, in that most illnesses are benign. Most illnesses in kids are benign. But when your child is really, really sick, you're going to know it. Like there's going to be something off in you. Even if you think you've lost your intuition, something's going to trigger you to be like, I don't like it. I don't like it. And I want you to advocate for the kid, especially, like I said, if they're not communicating or acting at their developmental level. And it can be really hard in younger children, especially because they're already not as communicative. But if they're normally playful and they're just laying there, or if they're slurring their words, like those are things that we're going to want to know. And sometimes that may be multiple visits, because inconsolability alone is not a red flag, right? It's not like, oh my God, you have to get all this workup done. But persistent inconsolability, changes in behavior, can be, and it is a team effort into approaching these situations. And my hope is that every clinician and every parent can advocate for each other, so that we can obviously, take care of the children, and know that you have a team and a village to help your kids. And that child made an amazing recovery, is doing well, needed just
all I need
support.
Is a year. Oh my God.
Yes, I know. I needed to end it like that.
To that?
Yes. No, she's doing really well. I mean, she just
good.
needed support in the ICU, and just like let that virus do its thing. It's a viral mediated thing.
Yeah, wow.
This is our job. I mean, it is hard, the work that we do, but on the flip side, it's very hard also being a parent. But tap into the intuition, use your village, make sure that you always take the opinion of others. And even if something doesn't sit right, the worst thing we do is you wasted your time and you went to go see someone. But if you want to go back, and there is someone available 24/7, that's the thing about medicine. It never shuts down. ER, urgent cares, whatever it is. I mean, there's always going to be somebody. And my advocacy advice would be that if you ever find yourself super worried about your kid, and you are like being told no, like just say you're at a hospital, I want you to ask the hospital, I am concerned, what is the next level of care I can get to speak to somebody else for a second opinion? It is okay to say that if you're really worried and people are dismissive. And I talk a lot about advocacy on my page because I've been dismissed as a patient. I have dismissed patients, like meaning thought something was nothing. And it turned out to be like, this is the example I give.
Yeah.
And so I'm very transparent on how can we be better at this system where the body can change. Things are not always going to be crystal clear, but how can we better advocate for our patients in front of us?
Oh my God, that is such a great story in like as well for those parents in like how they kept advocating. Like also the thing that you said about like one of the things to look out for with breathing resonated so much with me because when I had my youngest child, my youngest son, he's now 8 or he will be 8 in a little bit. When he was a newborn, only like a couple of weeks old, he got a cold from a relative visiting who thought like, I can just come in, like, this is fine.
Yeah.
I will keep my distance. And like they kept their distance, but the baby still got sick. And he was born in November. So like he had a cold for like basically the entire winter. And then that culminated in the end in him being admitted to the hospital in March because he kept having that, for people who aren't watching, like the sucking in of the rib cage and of like the little soft spot below your neck because he had such a hard time breathing. And when you talk about like your village and second opinion and like advice and grandparents and everything, the reason why I knew that was worrying was because of social media. Because
that's your village.
like as a parent, especially with a newborn, like your phone is your like gateway into the world and in connecting with other adults when you are like nursing a newborn and you can't leave the house. Because it was flu season, cold season, RSV season, I was more like, I had seen all these videos of people highlighting like, this is what it looks like when they can breathe. And I was able to recognize that in my own kid in the middle of the night. And like, it had been like getting worse and worse. And I remember just like deciding at like 1 a.m., like, I can't, like, this is getting so bad and I need to go to the hospital right now. And he ended up being admitted for, I think it's bronchiolitis, like not a full-on bronchitis, but like some other kind of inflammation. And we had to be admitted for like a couple of days. I missed my oldest son's 2nd birthday because I was still in the hospital with the baby. There's the village of like the people around you, but like sometimes like social media, when done right, can also be so incredibly helpful. And there are so many like little tips and did you knows and something you need to know that you can just like scroll on and you can just like stumble upon and discover. But as we are moving into cold season, flu season, all around sickness season, what are some like, aside from like the hand washing, what are some like basic tips that you could have, like basic things that parents could keep in mind on like how to set a healthy baseline for their kids in their household? Do you have like some insights in that?
Yeah. And thank you so much. I think, before I answer that question, I think I'm so grateful to have my platform because I get to do that for people. And the amount of saves I get on my videos, it means so much because that means that people are going to go back to that, right? Meaning whether it's a respiratory distress, whether I'm showing them how to reduce a nursemaid's elbow, which is like very actually common. And like, it just gives people security in an otherwise chaotic experience of parenthood, right? When you feel like there's so much, and I really try hard to make it where it's not scary, right? Like I'm not trying to tell you that this is going to happen to your kid, but I want you to know the signs so that if you see this, you are now going to know what to do. And the amount of DMs and messages I get on my YouTube that like, because of your video, I got my kid help. And you saved me that worry. And I'm like, that is why I started PedsDocTalk. And I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And when it comes to tips, I have no magic thing, like no supplement, no magic anything. And it goes back to the basics of what your mom, Esther, is probably going to really appreciate here. And I love, you should share this portion with your mom. So we talked about obviously hand washing, which is my foundation of everything. And then everything else is foundational because when we get into this, you should do this and you should take this, then we create guilt, right? Because then we're like, I didn't do this and my kid got sick because of it. Kids are nasty. Okay, they're going to get sick. They're going to lick things. They're going to lick things. They're going to lick you. They're going to lick each other. You cannot control everything your child does to reduce an illness coming into their body. So we're going to go back to the basics of hand washing, getting the sleep that they can, sleep is regenerative. And I cannot stress this enough. Like, when your kid is sick, you're going to let them sleep. You're not going to wake them up. You're not going to do anything. You're going to let them sleep. And so many parents want to wake up their kid to check a temperature or to give them medicine. Unless your clinician particularly says to wake up a sleeping child, please let your kid sleep. That is their immune system needing to repair, right? Similar to me and you, that if we're sick, we are going to rest. If your husband woke you up when you're not feeling good, you're going to probably slap him in the face, similar to your kid. So, no, but maybe you won't. But it's really important to remember to let them sleep, ditch schedules, none of that, right? And then the flip side is you yourself, I want you to sleep too, meaning don't stay up late. If someone in your house is sick, your doctor recommendation is to also get sleep too, to help reduce your chance of getting sick. I do this all the time. I tend to be staying up till 11:30, but when any of my children are sick, I'm in bed by 10 because I know that maybe one, they'll wake up, or two, I know that I may get sick. And what can I do to prevent that? My immune system needs to reset itself, and sleep is healing. Like, I'm a sleep obsessed person. I cannot express how much of this world would be better if we all got better sleep. So that's number two after
I
hand
love
washing.
that.
And then it goes down to hydration. And that sounds really like typical, but like drinking water if they're of age of drinking water, breast milk formula if they're of age of that. Hydration helps keep your mucous membranes moist so that you're less likely to have pathogens stick. I also really like saline spray. So if you're feeling dry in the nostrils, this kind of goes back to what you were saying, Melissa, about your mom saying that like wearing a scarf. So it's not that like being cold is going to get you sick, but when you wear a scarf, you're breathing in humidified warm air, right? Because it's coming from your scarf. When you breathe in cold air, pathogens are more likely to stick into your mucous membrane. So humidified, warm, moist airways are less likely to have pathogens stick. So I do saline spray when I'm dry. I do saline spray for the kids when they're sick. Basic things that help keep things running, but also it's been shown that saline can help reduce the replication of viruses. And the studies around these have shown more with like hypertonic saline, which is high ratio salt to water. But it's not that the low, like normal ratio saline is not going to do anything. I am saline obsessed, sleep obsessed, hydration obsessed. And then get outside if you're able to get outside. Like, I'm grateful that we live in Florida, that weather is good year round, that if they're sick, I can take them outside. And I don't mean take them to a playground where they're going to touch things and get other kids sick. We go to like this open field park and we just play with our own stuff, like we'll take a soccer ball or take these rockets that we shoot in the air, and I'll let the kids just be outside with our family, right? You don't want to spread the germs by going on equipment, but go for a walk. Even if it's cooler, put all your clothes on, get outside, because like Esther, we were talking about, like being indoors, not only does that cause more stress because you get cabin fever, but you need fresh air. Like fresh air, vitamin D, like being outside in the sun, if it's a sunny day and you're sick, is very healing. So all of my recs go back down to like basic things that probably the cavemen did when they were like, they slept, they got outside, they, probably had some hydration, they probably ate good food, stay high, like obviously protein and hunted, but you don't need to go hunting, but like just make sure that you're eating well, drinking water and formula breast milk, no alcohol, and get outside and sleep. It's very basic. And, I'm not going to ever pitch any supplement. I am very big on turmeric when I'm sick, like meaning I drink turmeric shots twice a day. And it's what I do, like those pressed juices. And then when I'm sick, I drink golden milk, which is a recipe that has honey, turmeric, black pepper. I swear by it, but I don't overdose it. Like I'm not like injecting it into me. I'm not going to see a naturopath that's like, yeah, just take 1,000 milligrams of turmeric. No, I'm very moderate with my use. And I go back to like Ayurvedic and cooking culinary medicine, which is spices. And like, our kids eat a lot of spice, meaning garlic, pepper, all of that. And because of that, I think it really also helps the immune system too. And I grew up doing the same thing,
I mean, I think like in our house, we grew up and it was like chicken soup. Like if anyone had like the inkling of being sick, it was like my mom had the pot on, and I swear it helped. And even just last week, I was sick and my kids were both kind of like half sick with cold. And I always have chicken soup in the freezer, and I just like defrosted it. We had some and they never really got sick. And I was better within a couple of days. It was like, not just because of chicken soup, but because like I do believe that these like hot, especially like bone broths, like all these things have so
Yeah.
much nourishment and it does heal. I mean, also I'm a firm believer in like the coziness of being sick. And when I was a kid, I have these like very clear memories of being fed chicken soup on the couch under a blanket, and it made me feel like safe and cozy and like I was going to get better. And even as an adult now, I'm like, okay, like just a bowl of chicken soup and I'll feel better. And I think every culture and every family has that thing that's their go-to when they're not feeling well. And I think one of the coolest things we can do as parents is to also like give our kids that gift of tradition and what being sick means. Like I don't want my kids to see me sick and then working constantly and going out and not resting. Like
Yes.
I think
Yes.
it's really hard to even get my own kids to rest when they're sick, especially my 3.5-year-old which I always find is kind of like a good sign. I'm like, okay, maybe he's not that sick, but also just chill, like stop running around maybe. But yeah, I think like in general, this has been so insightful because there's just so much noise out there. And as much as I think social media offers a lot of really wonderful support and tips, it can become cloudy and we don't always know who to trust. And I think too, like, I don't know, there's just so many opinions. And sometimes there's just too
Yeah.
many cooks in the kitchen. And just hearing the fundamentals has been really just kind of like reawakening for me, at least, of like somebody who does worry about their kids' health. Well, I guess we all do, frankly, but just like not knowing, like, is this a thing? Should I panic? Should we run to the doctor? Do we stay home? How psychotic should I be about hand washing? Like, it's nice to have that all validated. So we really appreciate all of your insights. And maybe just to wrap up, if there was one thing that you could share with parents who are navigating raising kids and keeping those kids healthy? I mean, we didn't even get into mental health. Time
Yeah.
has gone so fast, but like, is there something, what's your like number one favorite thing you tell parents?
I think this would be perfect for mental health, and it's stay hopeful and not naive. And what I mean by that is when your kid is sick or you're seeing people drop like flies around you, it's easy to start to spiral. And that spiral, it can look like, oh my God, we're going to get it. Oh my God, I'm going to have to take off work. Oh my God, my kid's going to have to be pulled out of school. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And that spiral is not healthy for anybody. Not only does it cause cortisol to raise, which is not good for our immune system. Number two, it doesn't change where you're at now, right? You cannot control everything. You cannot control whether your kids lick the floor at a restaurant or not, right? So hope doesn't mean that you're in denial. It just means that you believe in healing, positivity, while acknowledging the heart. So for example, if your kid is sick and you're like, you can say this freaking sucks. Like this is tough. I don't like that my kid is sick, but you can also say, I'm going to get through this. We're going to focus on the now. And I have my village. I know that if things don't look good, I'm going to go to the hospital. I know that I'm not alone because my hope here is that we're not feeling in isolation when our kids are feeling unwell, because that is when we start to spiral. That is when we feel like everything's collapsing. And our children need a sturdy leader all the time, especially when they're the most vulnerable, which part of that is when they're sick, right? And I always say this, they are going to be raised by how you position yourself in these moments. So I don't want you to be whiny, touchy-feely, like, oh, poor baby, you're sick. I don't want you to be dismissive. What I want you to say to your family, your kid when they're sick is, hey, bud, you're not feeling good. And it really doesn't feel great when you're not feeling good. I don't like being sick. But you know what's really going to help you? Drinking your water and eating this meal and eat what you want. And then we're going to go to bed, because when you go to bed, you feel better. And we've instilled this in our children from when they were very young, like since the time that my kids were 2. And now my son is 6, and he knows his body so well that when he's not feeling good, he will tell me, Mommy, I don't feel good. I'm going to go rest upstairs. And it's repetition. It's that understanding that if your body's not feeling good, I want you to listen to it and I want you to tell me, and we're going to figure it out. And to me, that is what I want want your listeners to understand, is that there's going to be so many moments in their life. There's going to be so many illnesses. It's going to get better. They're not going to be sick all the time. But what I'm trying to raise is the kid who doesn't crumble when they're sick. And the only way they're not going to crumble, and what I mean by that is this sort of, my life is collapsing, everything sucks, I don't have time to be sick, is if you don't do that as well. And I grew up in that household that was, getting sick was inconvenient. And I then grew up thinking that now this is an inconvenience. How sad that we think being sick is an inconvenience. Of course, it's not fun, but it's life. I mean, we have to get through those moments. So you got to model it. And remember what I said about the fact that you are going to be hopeful and not naive, meaning you're not going to not get help, but you're also not going to just live in this fear and spiral into, the what ifs and what could I have done to not be in this place.
That is such a good banger. Yeah. Thank you.
I love a good club banger. I love it.
No, it's so great. I mean, because honestly, like I grew up in a house where it was like, you're not feeling well. Okay. What do we like? It was
right.
I grew up the opposite. My mom was like, unless you have like 100-degree fever, you are going to school. Like she was very dismissive about that because like it was an inconvenience. She was just like, you are fine.
That's what it was for us too. And
I went to school with a bladder infection. And I
I mean, I'm not, it's a healthy medium, right? Like, I mean, exactly. I don't want the, oh my gosh, the coddling, but I do not want the dismissive because then we grow up to think that our health is just something that, okay, well then I just got to suck it up and go. But sometimes you're just not feeling good. Like,
and then I feel like too is then your kids might not tell you as they get older if they're not feeling well or something big is happening with their body and it's not normal and they're not feeling okay or safe, then they might not come share that if they're going to think it's just going to get dismissed. I mean, yeah, I don't know, but this has been so fantastic. Thank you so much, Mona. You're great. And I feel like we could have actually talked to you for like 6 more hours. There's just so much to talk about.
I love podcasting. Obviously, I have my own, so that would make sense, and I hope I would. But this was such a pleasure. I loved it. It was really nice just chatting about things, and I really hope people feel more confident. That's my goal. I want confident parenting. I don't want feeling in this what if situation, and I feel like I'm a confident parent, and part of that's just knowing what you want and knowing what to do and knowing when you need help. That's it. That's about being confident. It's not being able to do everything on your own. That's a very good anecdote for life, honestly. Because that's another club banger for you, right? It's another banger. Yeah, add it to the playlist. I'm going to just have your voice like on repeat. It's like my new mantra. But I think it's true because I am somebody who's I get the anxiety of like, oh no, like what are we all getting? Like, and I think too, it's because I find it so hard to be sick and take care of a sick kid, which I guess every parent feels, but I just feel sad for those moments. But then there's always something fun or positive that ends up coming out of it. Like, some of my favorite memories being a kid was like being homesick with my mom because I didn't have to go to school and we got like time together and we got to do interesting things as long as I wasn't like, extremely sick. So I think there's always a silver lining, and I like your anecdote about staying very positive. So we learned a lot today. I think it was great. I think people are going to love this episode. I feel very equipped to... Same. I feel ready for flu season. I love it. Yes. Thank you guys so much for having me. Yeah, Dr. Mona is amazing. I feel so much better equipped now to go into the winter and feel like with my kids and not be too concerned about what we might get. And also just to follow my own gut, or when my gut isn't fully communicating with me, to follow the gut of maybe somebody from my village, which I thought was also really cool advice. And my biggest takeaway was just wash our hands. My biggest takeaway was the positivity thing and the not spiraling thing. Because I tend to spiral very quickly once I hear like someone is sick. Because I'm immediately planning like a week ahead or like all of my days ahead of like, okay, this is when this is happening. I have to like make sure I stock up on XYZ. And like that is good instinct, but I don't want to get carried away with that. I love that. Also the window thing, having this mentality of like, let's air out the house. So if your kids are getting sick. I do it even in winter. Yeah, we do it a bit too because Nick's German. And I feel like my house just gets healthier based on that alone. Yeah, we hope you all had a good time listening to this episode. I think what's most important is that you stay healthy and that your kids stay healthy. If you want some more support or answers, or just the feeling like it's all going to be okay this flu season, go follow Dr. Mona at PedsDocTalk. That's at Peds, P-E-D-S, Doc Talk. She's awesome. And in the meantime, stay healthy, stay sane, and remember you're doing great. And we love you. And we'll see you next week.
Okay, and that's the pod. But please don't go anywhere yet. Don't press any buttons. Before you go, we want to remind you that We're Doing Great is brought to you by POC, an award-winning company reimagining how kids play and learn using technology. If you appreciated this episode, please give us 5 stars so other parents can come find us too. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Come find us on Instagram and TikTok at We're Doing Great Pod. We would love to talk to you and learn from you and just chat and be friends. And until then, don't forget you're doing great.